What if the scariest thing in a horror game wasn't something you could see, but something you could only hear?
You, uh, you hear something, Peggy?
Huh? Hear what?
Killer Frequency is an indie horror puzzle game developed by Team 17. You play as a late night radio host who moves to a small town of about 1,000 people and, due to some very unfortunate circumstances, ends up filling in as the town's 911 operator for the night. It doesn't take long before things get worse. A serial killer, someone who was supposed to have died years ago, is back, and one by one, people start calling your station asking for help as they're being hunted. And your job is to guide them to safety using only the information they give you. If you can figure things out, they get to live. But if you can't, you can probably guess what will happen next. But what makes Killer Frequency so effective as a horror game isn't what it shows you, it's what it doesn't show you. Because you never actually see the killer. Instead, you hear him. And more importantly, you hear everything else around him. The game builds its entire world through sound. What sound theorist R. Murray Schafer calls the soundscape, the idea that sound creates an environment, is basically doing all the heavy lifting for the world building of the game. Phone calls, radio broadcasts, background noise, footsteps, breathing, these aren't just extra details layered on top of the game. They are the game. Every call you take becomes what's called an acousmatic experience, which is just a fancy big word that means you're hearing something without seeing where it's coming from. The caller is somewhere out there, describing what's happening in real time, but you're forced to just imagine it. The game actually never confirms what anything looks like, which means your brain fills in the gaps. If you can get into the imagination of the player, then you can create something far more terrifying than anything you could ever show on screen. I feel like I just quoted something there. Anyway, this whole idea connects to, oh wait, that was that clip from that one TV show about the Heinz ad. Anyway, as I was saying, the idea of hearing something without seeing the source connects to Michel Chion's idea of acousmatic sound. The killer in this game, the Whistling Man, is basically the definition of that. You hear his breathing, his signature whistling, you hear his movement, but you never actually see him. And that's what makes him so much worse than your average horror game villain. Because if you can't see where something is, you can't really understand it, you can't locate it, you can't predict it. The killer stops being a thing in a specific place and starts feeling like he could be anywhere. And the game actually doubles down on this by putting you in the role of a radio host. You're not just separated from the killer, you're separated from everything. Every piece of information you get is filtered through voices, static, and whatever the caller can describe before things go wrong. So now, sound isn't just atmosphere, it's your only tool. You're guiding people using what they hear. You're piecing together their surroundings through audio clues. And if you misunderstand something, if you miss a detail or interpret a sound the wrong way, you can literally send someone to their doom. There are even moments where the most terrifying thing isn't the noise, it's the lack of one. When a caller goes quiet, or hesitates, or the line just stops for a second, you start filling that silence with the worst possible outcome. Listening becomes the core mechanic of survival. You're not fighting, you're not hiding, you're not running, you're listening. And that creates a completely different kind of tension. Most horror games rely on what you see. Monsters, environments, jump scares. But here, the fear comes from the responsibility. Someone is on the phone with you, depending on you to keep them alive. And all you have to go off of is what you can hear and how well you understand it. Even the music plays into this. The radio station is blasting upbeat, nostalgic tracks while somewhere else, someone is actively being hunted. Which is kind of messed up when you think about it. But it creates this weird emotional split. Inside the station, everything feels calm, controlled, almost safe. Outside, it's chaos, and you can only experience that chaos through sound. And you can't leave either of them. Killer Frequency says something bigger about how we experience fear. It taps into this idea that not knowing, not seeing, is often worse than anything we could be shown. And it also plays on the anxiety of communication, where you can hear someone, you can try to help them, but you can never truly control what's happening on the other end. The game proves something pretty simple. Horror doesn't need to be seen to work. Sometimes all you need is just a disembodied voice, massacring a whole town.